Right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I'm Phil from Border. I look after the commercial side. We've got Nick and Felicity and Tarveen in here as well, who will all support, and Denise who is development as well. So hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
So thanks for taking the time to have a look at this webinar. We are recording this, so if you don't have time to listen to all of it, don't worry, we'll try and find some way of putting it up on the website. Technical issues permitting. We think it will take approximately about an hour, this webinar, to run. You should only be able to hear us speak, so it's not a particularly interactive webinar, but you'll be able to see our screen and hear what we have to say. If you've got any questions after the webinar or during, just drop an email to support and we'll get you an answer. We're going to cover today what we covered in the review section of the user meeting. So these are really key developments in the last 12 months. And we're also going to have a quick look at our roadmap plans for 2018 as well. So Tavi's going to look at, and Nick are going to look at product maintenance. Denise is going to talk about buying. Felicity's talk about some general changes that have been input in the system in the last 12 months. And then Denise is just going to give us a little overview on the roadmap for 2018. We're going to do a separate webinar to cover our B2B web portal, changes in graphical point of sale, and also our new bartender label option as well. So you should have had the links for those, but if not, I'll be sending out reminders as well. So pass over to Tarveen. He's going to start us off on product maintenance.
Hello, I'm just going to get rid of this thing at the top. Brilliant, there we go. So the ability to load products via a spreadsheet has been a popular and widely used area within the system. We've been asked for various improvements over the years, and development have done a wholesale review of these imports, and issue 2.6c continues the improvements done in 2.6b. So one of the most significant changes that you'll find is that the load new products and update existing products use the same column headings to identify the information. So what this means for you is that you're no longer restricted by a fixed format. So the columns can be supplied in any order, and only the columns needed need to be in the spreadsheet. So what this means is that it's a greater level of flexibility. So if you do have spreadsheets from your supplier with very little manipulation, if at all, you should be able to load them into your price book. Worth having a look at the extract. So this is how the extract would appear. So looking along the top for these headers, our information doesn't quite look as tidy as yours probably does. But really, to get the idea across of the amount of work and the improvement that has been done in this area, it's probably best to look at a handout that I have produced, and that will be sent out with the issue notes. And if you do require it in the meantime, or you want to request a copy, we can email that across. Just ping us an email about that. But you can see here that there's changes to the column headers so that they're more rationalized and make a bit more sense. And then there's brand new column headers that didn't exist before, and so they're all identified in this first column here. So there's a lot of work that's been done to improve how it all works together. So I'll close that. So the entire file is now validated before it's loaded into the system. This is hopefully to cut down on any incorrect values being loaded. So if it does identify any errors, then no products are loaded at all. And it's been designed, all the changes and improvements have been designed to complement the existing group amendments that's already available within the system. So I'm now just going to look at the points that are covered in the loading of new products. So this covers all normal products only, so it doesn't apply to kits and globals, etc. And you need to identify the product in some way. So either use a product group or an 8-character product code. That is the only column that is mandatory. If you do use product groups, then the validation process checks to make sure that there's enough space before loading it in. This ensures that you've got enough sequence numbers within your price book before assigning them to any new products. So we've got the ability to, you can set a stock type, you can set it as stocked at branches. So you can do this by entering all into the column, or you can put a comma-separated list of branches that you'd like to apply the stock type of stocked against. And the same for ordered on request. So again, you can either put in all or a comma-separated list of branches. These two elements only apply when loading new products into the system. And just obviously, just to complete the picture, prices are loaded as current pricing. So update of existing products. So this would apply to normal products, globals, and kits. There are 3 additional methods of identifying a product available on the system, along with the traditional 8-character product code that already exists within the price book. So you can opt for leaving this column empty if you wish. The 3 ways are, so you can do an EAN number in the barcode column. You can use a supplier account and a catalogue number in the catalogue column. Or you can simply supply a quick code. So any future pricing that's been loaded into the spreadsheet to update existing products are effective from the date selected. So if a future price already exists for a product, they will be overwritten by the new price update request. We now have the ability to update regional prices using a spreadsheet. So if regional prices do not already exist for a product, then the details are copied from current company prices and new prices are applied and recalculated accordingly. We've got a warning that's available. So if a price differs more than 50%, a warning is reported. And this is usually an indication that you may have your unit of price wrong. And if any products price has been changed as part of it's a component of a kit, the kit is also repriced. I'll now be passing on to Nick.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. So I'm just going to talk about updating stock information from a CSV file. So normal products and global products can be updated from a CSV file. Like Tarveen said, the file is also validated before importing. In this import, you can do multi-branch updates. So by having 1 row per branch, you can import the information there. Columns are identified by column headings, so they can be supplied in any order. So if you've got a supply spreadsheet or something like that, as long as your column heading is correct, the order is not required. The only 2 mandatory columns that you'll need for this are the location and the product. Any of the stock extracts that we'll look at in a second provide the headers in the updated format, again as Tarveen showed you. And this is designed to complement the stock amendments, the group stock amendments.
Are you accepting people as
and the multi-branch updates that are already available. So if we just jump into the system and have a quick look at that. Just bear with me 1 sec. I can't seem to flip to the...
You should be able to.
No, it's just taking me.
Let a few people in. And it all. You can admit
So we've done a few late comers. The graphical screen's disappeared as well.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, so if we minimize that, and then if you...
I can't, just bear with us 1 second. Welcome to everybody else that's just that's just joined us. We're just talking about this stock info import from CSV.
What is it doing? Is it controlled?
Alt tab it should be. As to
So is it less graphical?
no, it's because we're shared to the demo kit. It's not allowing us to minimise the.
Unless you
Should we
escape,
just-
you can.
There we
Yeah.
go. Sorry about that, guys. So if we go into graphical, go into stock control, and I'm just going to use the extract product info into Excel. It's going to choose for updating products, and I'm just going to choose a short product range. Our keyboard might be running out of
Battery.
battery. Oh, jump onto that.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No way.
I'm using the battery pack.
Hang on.
Is it an AA?
I don't know if it's that one or not. So that's my product range. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to leave everything else the same. What that's going to do is that's going to give me an extract here. I don't want to change any of this information, so I'm just going to delete that. Check I didn't leave anything in the end. 3. So that's just delete there. So all I'm going to do is change these columns and let's just say that this is going to be in a different rack. We're just having a little bit of keyboard issue at the minute.
With enormous well planning, the batteries just run it on our wireless keyboard.
So let's just drag that down there, that's fine. So if I just save that as a CSV file, just stick it on my desktop. Raise that, yeah, that's fine. So if I now go back into maintenance and update info from CSV file, and then I choose my file from here. It's told me that those 7 products have been loaded correctly, and we can go and look at one of those in the stock display. What it is,
You're just having
real
keyboard
trouble
trouble.
with the keyboard.
There's nothing
It's definitely not the
wrong with
user,
the
I
keyboard.
promise you. And you can see there it's updated
Stage 5.
that rack location. Do you want to just flick that through for me?
We're just going to check the lobby
Just make sure we haven't got anybody else waiting.
that we
Sorry.
haven't got anyone else waiting. It is recorded.
But it's just,
If anyone's joined late, so what is it?
just click on that.
This one?
No, sorry, there's nobody waiting, is it?
That doesn't look like
Okay,
it.
sorry about
So minimise that.
that. Back to that.
Back to here. And I'll just jump to Nick's last one. This one, wasn't it, Nick?
It was, yep.
There you go.
So one thing that we didn't do with the changes to the imports is give the facility to load price formulas. We decided against this because it's quite complex and the risk it poses to getting prices wrong. However, we would consider a facility to load in a net price and then provide an option to convert that to a formula based on your list or cost price, and the UOP could also be applied. If that's something of interest, please drop us an email and we'll add it to the existing enhancement request. I'm going to hand over to Denise, who hopefully will have a little bit more luck with the keyboard than I've had. So thank you very much, Denise.
Okay, it's a good job it wasn't the mouse, otherwise anybody who knows me will know I would be really stuck. So we've had a bit of battery changing going on our side, so all excitement this ends. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is buying. Okay, so quite a lot of people, or most people, use our what we would describe as basic ordering. So they raise manual purchase orders. They might raise back-to-back orders for on request and special products. They book goods in. They check the purchase invoices, either using check purchase invoice on the system, or you might have one or more forms of EDI happening to do that automatically. And of course, you've got returns to suppliers that you can do. So in order to use that basic ordering, you've got some information that you need to maintain. So pack size, minimum order quantity, lead time for each product. You can put a list of preferred suppliers in. So you put them in your preferred order. So you've got a main supplier and potentially alternatives. You can fill in details of any minimum order requirements, so a minimum weight or a minimum value that you've got to reach, and of course that could be different for carriage free as well. And this basic information, there's various methods for updating that stock information. using menu options on Counteract, or using the spreadsheet route that Nick's just gone through with us. And if you have information that's common between several branches, that can be copied. So it's worth having a chat with us about the options on that front. So if you're going to do the sort of basic ordering, housekeeping is important. It's good to keep things tidy, balances on orders, and so on and so forth. So moving on from that, I'm going to talk a little bit about recommended ordering. Now, we have a few customers that use recommended ordering extensively to its absolute nth degree. We have an awful lot of people who do not use recommended ordering, or use it in a sort of dipped a toe in the water and had a go, but that's about it. So what is a recommended order? Well, a recommended order is just a suggestion. It's trying to give you a suggestion based on the information that it knows about, but there will always be circumstances that your buyers know more about than the computer system, and it should never be sort of seen as a sort of diktat from the system that this is what you've got to do. You will always have your expertise, which comes on top of what the system is saying. So if you're going to do recommended ordering, you've got to set up some additional information. So the main one is the order rule. Now, there are two schools of thought here. The first option is to use what we call min-max. So as you sell down below the minimum level, the system will suggest that you order back up to reach the max level. The advantage of that is that it's fairly straightforward. Everybody understands what it does. The downside of it is that the min-max levels are only as good as the last time you reviewed that set of products and set your min-max levels. The other school of thought is the standard and replacement route. Now, replacement is used for slow-moving products, which on the face of it you don't sell that many of, but they're the sort of core things that you would expect to have two or three on the shelf for if somebody comes in and wants to buy them. But the majority of your products would be left as the default order rule, which is standard. The advantage of that route is that the system reacts to how sales change. So you don't actually have to do any work. The system just keeps track of what's going on and reacts to the different change in the sales pattern. I think the con side of the standard order ruling is that it's a bit of a black art, that people have to understand the forecast calculation, I think people like to understand the forecast calculation to understand sort of why it's suggesting what it does. But it always calculates a forecast regardless of which route you decide to go down for recommended orders. If you want to see the actual mathematical calculation for the forecast, we'd be happy to give you a copy. I've even got a little test program which will allow you to feed figures in, and you can see how the forecast calculation reacts, should you wish to do that. So left to its own devices, recommended ordering would order little and often, but obviously there's got to be some sort of a compromise between minimising your stock holding and having lorries queued all the way down the road with people desperately trying to deliver small amounts of stock to you. So there are two ways of doing that, and you can mix and match them actually. You can either put a stock holding in, which is the number of weeks stock that you want to hold, or you can have an order frequency. So if you order from a supplier every fortnight, you can use the frequency and actually have it based on that. And again, there's various methods for updating all this stock information and for sharing common information between branches. If you do recommended ordering, you're led into the world of considering whether you just do an order for one branch or whether you do what we call company recommended ordering, which doesn't have to be for the entire company. It can just be for a group of branches. So you may have particular product ranges where one branch acts effectively as a hub for holding stock for another group of branches. And so you can mix and match. It gives you more options as to what you can do. And if you do the company ordering, you can bring the stock into the hub branch, and then the system can automatically generate inter-branch transfers so that it moves the stock out to the other branches. If you're going to do recommended ordering, the one thing I'm going to say is that housekeeping is absolutely essential, because it's basing its suggestions on what it knows about what's on order already, how you're selling, and so on. It's really important to keep that all tidy. So how can you create recommended orders? So the simplest way is to have a report called the stock order review list produced automatically. And there's various formats that you can have that in. And then you can just look at that report and create orders on request as and when you think you need to do so. You may have some suppliers where you want to do it on a diary basis. So if you order every Tuesday or every other Thursday, you tell the system that that's what you want to do, and the system will kick out a recommended order at the appointed time. Obviously, if you've got more than one branch, you may have a branch that's got surplus stock and another one that needs it. So you have the option of running this at recommended inter-branch transfers overnight, so that it suggests where you might like to transfer stock between your branches. There are all sorts of rules that you can build into that so that you can keep it under control, because obviously you don't want to be transferring everything, and you can decide which branches are interested in other branches. Okay. And then finally, what I was going to show you was something that we've actually introduced in 2.6b, but we think it's really useful. It's the buying control panel. So just before I go off to that, I was just going to say that we'll be holding webinars in the latter half of 2018 to sort of take you through the buying side. Because, as I say, we think that people could make more use of recommended orders, so we'll be trying to encourage that. Okay, let's go off to the. No.
Escape.
Escape. Sorry. Escape. There we go. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So here we are, here's the buying control panel. What this actually does is to give the buyer at any particular branch an overall picture of where we are. So this is generated automatically overnight, and it creates recommended orders for any suppliers where it thinks you need to order. So the first thing it's highlighted up to me is that I think there's that's interesting. I don't know why we've got an unknown supplier up there. We're having some problems with our demo kit and how this was running, because we don't have our demo kit on all the time. But anyway, so you see here we've actually ordered these two. So any orders that you've already placed today go to the bottom of the list. You see that little star at the side? Those star ones would start life at the start of a day at the top of the list. And the star indicates that those orders contain products that you need to order for a customer. So they're specials or ordered on request. So you need to make sure that you're actually getting on top of that for making sure that you've got the goods for the customer. So they would normally appear at the top of the list at the start of the day. And then the remaining things come down the screen. So you get the biggest potential order value at the top and sort of going down in sequence. Okay, and then you've got the ordered ones down here. So at the top of the screen, you've got lots of filters that you can apply to what you can see. You can filter by brand, by buyer. Here, and the more features, you can go to the display for the supplier that you're sat on. You can go to the website, and then you've got these refresh options. So starts off at the start of the day based on the information that was there last night. Obviously, as you go through the day, the information is changing, the position's changing all the time. So you've got the option of refreshing all orders. Now that takes a few minutes because it's looking through an enormous amount of information. So it's not something you do too often. It's probably something you do mid-morning and then again at lunchtime, maybe in the afternoon, just as and when it suits you really. But if you're actually thinking of placing an order, you can think, oh well, we're almost at the point where I want to place an order. I'll just refresh one single order, so you can do that. As you move up and down through the suppliers on the screen, you can see this information at the bottom, and it tries to give you an indication of what you need to achieve. Out here to the right, there's a lot of information as well about what it covers. So that's there. Another thing to mention is you see that this status on this one is work in progress. This is a new feature, regardless of whether you use the buying control panel or not. You're able to make changes to a recommended order, and you then get two options. You can either carry on and create an order, which is what you used to have to do prior to 26C, or you can just save it and it will save it back as a work in progress one, and it will leave it on the list. So as I say, I think this really just gives you an overall picture, allows you to sort of focus in on what's happening, make sure that you've got the specials and the ordered on request products under control in a more sort of obvious way. And I think this is a really good addition to Counteract. I have to say it's a chargeable enhancement, but if you are interested, ring us and have a chat with us about how much it costs. Because we'd like to see this feature being used. So I think that's me. So yeah, as I say, more webinars in the second half of this year.
Right, so that's on to me. Felicity. Thank you. Mouse, keyboard.
Mouse
Sorry,
upside
we're
down.
sitting
Mouse
around the
upside
table.
down.
Passing things around. Right, this is a general review that we did at the user meeting, and actually we'd already done a run through of graphical point of sale customer orders and pointed out quite a few enhancements that we'd made to that over the last couple of issues. But in fact, that's all so wonderful. We're doing a separate webinar on February the 15th to cover that. So this is just other points besides the sales order processing changes, really. So first thing I was going to talk to you about was the graphical help. I can't do a no. Oh, now what have I done? Oh no. Yeah, click that. Back in there. Escape. Sorry about the smooth running of this. So I should close Denise's buying control panel down.
It was perfect when we practiced.
It was, yes, exactly.
No, it actually wasn't perfect when we practiced, but it wasn't as bad as this. It's recorded for posterity, so
Right.
that's right.
Okay, help. I hope everyone knows about the help that sits here, because we do try and put quite a lot of stuff in here, but we really have improved it quite a bit. It lets you, we've got just straightforward access to YouTube videos there. Help topics, where you have a list here, which we have. I will go through how we've changed it in a moment. It's all far more based in the most useful sequence now. You used to have to look for useful things down at the bottom of the list and wander around. This search facility has changed slightly in that you can type in a word for something that you're interested in. Oh. That's right at the keyboard. Again. So I've typed in the word rebate, and it's now giving me a list in the sequence that it thinks with the most important, or where the word rebate's used most frequently. So I've got things like I can just go like this, and here's the quick reference guide on checking supplier rebates, and I can print that off if I wish, and that should be quite useful. Then you've also, let me see, customer rebates is another quick reference guide, down to then if rebates are mentioned in any issues. This is, we obviously haven't done anything with rebates for a while.
No, and we only have the last 4
Issues
in the help. We trim them after that.
That's right. So it gives you the highlights of and the full details of the issue. So back to the contents. So we've got this introduction right at the very top that you can open out, which has got about, counteract, and hints for new users. The how-to opens out to show you quick reference guides, YouTube videos, and the knowledge base. Within the quick reference guides, I expect anyone who's been using the system a while or had training has seen the quick reference guides, and they're all broken down into the different topics. YouTube videos obviously is something we've only done in the last year, and these are broken down into different areas, and these hopefully are going to increase greatly. So far we've only been doing them for highlights on the last 2 issues, and so that's what these topics are. And here is the knowledge base, which basically the knowledge base is just somewhere where we put all sorts of notes. If there's a topic that we think, oh, people could really do with some notes on this, we'll write some notes and then we'll put it into here in the next issue. So, for instance, in the accounts section, we've got things that we're often asked about. Customer settlement discount is one we're often. Well, I personally have to read that myself whenever I'm advising anyone how to deal with that, but that's a useful one that's sitting there. And then down to the issue notes, and something different in these is that issue notes now come with links to the relevant YouTube videos. So here we've got a video button that will go straight into the YouTube associated with that. So hopefully that's going to be useful. And on we go. These options here are all the just general information that would appear on the help for all the different menu items. And then finally we've got common procedures, which have got things like just a quick review of things like, oh, that's not very customer search, isn't there? What's I've chosen the wrong sort of thing. That's not at all interesting, is it? Product search, I was thinking, would have been really good. I'm having real trouble with my products and customers generally today. Right, so that's lots of changes to the graphical help, which it's just worth remembering that it's there, I think. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about, I won't bring this up to full scale again. That's just going to be so tortuous to get back again. The product sales inquiry, which has lived in the sales ledger inquiries and still does, product sales inquiry. In the next issue, we're sort of quietly adding it into the analysis menu as well, because I think that's where people sometimes would expect to see it, because it's basically lots of analysis information in a way. It's individual sales with all these different criteria. We've added some things in whereby with work in progress, you can decide whether you include or exclude work in progress sales. If you do include them, the date selections that you get are limited to just the advice note date or the advice note entered date. If you exclude the work in progress, then all of a sudden when I click on date, there's a lot more dates here. So you've got the invoice dates come into play, or you can do all sales for a for a specific accounting period. So that is the main changes that we've made there. We've also recently in this last year done a sort of bespoke overnight extract for somebody who needs to supply information of this kind to their customer on a daily basis. And so we have an overnight that's based on this program basically. And if anyone is needing a similar beast, it's a fairly straightforward, simple thing for us to
a reasonable
do.
price.
Reasonable, yes, exactly. By simple and straightforward means it won't cost very much.
A bargain.
because it's based on this existing thing. So if you use this and find it that you use it frequently for one customer's information, that could be useful. Okay, back to my diminished list here. Change, cancel, advice notes, and signature capture. If you use signature capture, you will know that up till now, if you use change, cancel, change the advice note, you can't reprint it and have it re-signed. But now there is an option to allow you to do that if you wish to have that. It isn't just everybody, because it's not something that everybody would want. I think if you've got a ticket that's signed floating around, you may not want a changed one then floating around with another signature. Customer orders work in progress. I will trot back to graphical. And from either the company version of the company orders work in progress or the individual branch one, we've added in the ability to, for one particular customer, when you use an Excel spreadsheet, well, you can use it for more than one customer, but it's probably quite useful for one customer. If a customer is interested in how you've been performing in terms of them sending you an order and then you fulfilling that order and sending it to them, in terms of how many deliveries you've had to do and whether you've done things on time, then there's information here which might be useful. So what am I doing? Phillips, Chepstow, and status was going to be completed, and date, we've got so few on our system that we don't need to put a range in to get some interesting data. And you can choose either a report type of summary or detailed. Detailed gives you every product, but I think mainly summary would be more useful. Here's our spreadsheet, and as well as all this basic information for each customer order. Ooh, what have I done? Yeah. Why does that keep coming up? I'm not doing it. Go away. All sorts of information here to do with where things have been delivered, the type of the sale, and eventually we get on to the number of sales for the customer order, and then was that by the date required on the customer order? No, in most cases on our demo system. And then there's an advice notes column where you can see the actual advice note numbers there, and then you've also got advice note dates. Go away. With the dates of the advice notes. So I think that might be useful in very specified circumstances. Customer details. Wherever you've got a credit note that you can see, so I'm going to go to, I am going to sales ledger inquiries, display customer details, and I'm going to bring up the field because I happen to know that they've got an easily accessible credit note here. If I drill down into this credit note, something that's been added is there's a link straight into the invoice that credit note was against. So I can go and have a look and see what it was and come out, and that's just an added bit of information there. What have we also got? We've also got a new ability on a customer. You can tick a flag to block using change cancel on any of their advice notes effectively. So it was somebody wanted, and it might be useful if your customer really doesn't want you mucking around with any advice notes. Payment days. Oh, I can just click on it. Yes, there you are. Payment days. I don't know. I think I do need to make this big. Do I just do this? No.
F5.
F5, thank you. Oh, you see, when we were actually at the user meeting, Darlene sat next to me when I was talking and pressed the keys. And now she's had to move across the room and press the keys for me. Here.
Might just stay here.
Right, yes, I've only got a couple more minutes. It's just that this history, if you are used to looking at these fields in graphical, then they've changed sequence in the next issue. So this is now the most recent payment history, followed by the other quarters. And it used to show oldest, so your most recent was over here. So that's, I'm now going to say escape.
We just discovered that graphical was actually displaying things the opposite way around to character, so we thought we'd better put them both in
Yes,
line.
I don't have to go back in.
Sorry, no.
Oh, I do have to.
There you go.
That's right, yeah, okay. EDI invoices. If anybody uses Readsoft or Atlas, and there's always been a facility to put a delay on certain suppliers if they're the sort of supplier that sends an invoice the second you've sent them an order before they've delivered the items. But now we've just got a default check of 3 times on every invoice. So when the invoice comes through first, if there's nothing to match it with, then it goes into a delayed status. The next time you process the invoices, it runs that one again and sees if it's any better. And the third time, it will actually fail if it hasn't received the invoice yet, but at least it gives more chance of success with the invoices. And timber certification, we have added a field, and I can get there nice and quickly on the price book. This morning I went to the customers for some reason, but we've added a new table where you can set up any certification types that you have. I mean, generally I think there's only PEFC and the other one, FSC. This one has something already there. Timber certification, I've got on our table, we've just got those 2. So that's how you can set up products and assign that effectively a sort of specific analysis code to them for timber. And then in conjunction with us, you could set up to have sales analysis reporting on products which are certified like that.
And you can also use it for selecting products in all the sort of stock reports and things as well. So,
Right, yes, okay,
yeah,
yes.
those choices.
Right, yeah, so that's useful. And then finally, oh no, oh my goodness, finally, if you have had fax in the past, we've only had VisiFax to offer. And yes, leave it there. This is a product called eFax that we have instead of VisiFax. And VisiFax has always insisted that you have a dedicated analog phone line, which obviously costs money, and a modem coming out of the back of your server. But eFax just makes use of your DB mail sending, and it sends off the document to a fax service.
It's a fax on demand service. So it actually sends it as an email and turns it into a fax. But if you don't do loads of faxing, it's probably quite an economic option rather than having to pay out for an analog line and a modem, which nobody wants to have modems sticking out the back of the servers anyway. So,
yes, that's right, because it's a pay-as-you-go.
It's a pay-as-you-go. So as long as you've got email, as long as you can email, you can fax. So it's quite good for that.
So you sign up with them, and then we set it up so that it works.
So if you're interested in that, just let us know. Drop us an email, and we'll send you some details.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So last, talk to us. Back to Denise and the roadmap.
Thank you for listening. I promise not to touch anything at all. Upside down mouse. There we go. Okay. Can you just go back to there? So first of all, I better explain why this says roadmap part 2. We actually split up the roadmap section at the user meeting because we had a section all about web, B2B, phase 1 and B2C. And roadmap part 1 came at the end of that. So there will be a separate webinar on the 11th of January to talk about the web side of things. Obviously, we've got B2C, which is the ability to have a fully integrated website so that you can have web trading for new cash customers. We've just released B2B phase 1, which is a customer portal where your account customers can log in and actually look at their financial information subject to controls that you can set up. And roadmap part 1 is actually the next phase of B2B. So that will cover the ability to take orders online for from your trade customers, to give you support for either delivery or click and collect. The information that you show on your website to your account customers, your trade customers, throws up a few challenges for discussion in terms of what prices do we show, what sort of stock availability information do you show. I think there's quite a lot of discussion around those topics, and I'm sure they will continue. I think also B2B phase 2 also sort of includes some of the logistical side of actually dealing with potentially taking quite a lot of orders online, and how you control those and how you look after them. So that was what we really covered in roadmap part 1. So roadmap part 2, I think probably the most important thing to say is obviously we're still recording requests. They come in regularly through the month, and we're still recording those and hopefully responding to the ones that we think will bring the greatest benefit and will make the system good for everybody. But the other sort of focus during 2018 is to look at how things are changing in terms of the trading and the communication side of things. So customers now expect much more sort of electronic communication, so things like being able to email advice notes and customer acknowledgements for customer orders. You go into any shop in the high street now and everybody says to you, would you like me to email your receipt? So at the moment we can't do that. So that's an area that we're going to look at. Improve. So in 2.6b, we did what we called linked documents on the customer and supplier side. So that on customers, for example, you could put a link to maybe a credit reference or the form that the customer filled out when they applied for their account. And we're also automatically archiving statements so that you can look back at previous month statements and also at remittances if you wish to. So what we want to do is to continue that process and look at the use of linked documents elsewhere in the system. So as we've got up here on the screen, quotations. So you may have had documents from your customer or the architect involved in a project where you've done a quotation. You may have things like photographs where you've taken photographs of things that have been bought back from a customer or the customer wants to send you back. You may have photographs and information about things you're sending back to a supplier. So we just want to expand the whole ethos of having the ability to link documents into Counteract. At the moment, you can only link to an individual document, so we want to also just add a little thing so you can link to an actual folder, so you can actually just open a folder and see everything in that. So we just want to expand that. We also have been thinking about scanning documents. So at the moment, you can scan. You can have stored collection notes, you can scan delivery notes, yard tickets, customer orders, obviously purchase invoices, thank you, purchase invoices. But we just sort of thought, is there anything else that we should be storing as well and allowing you to scan? So one of the things that we thought about was if you're actually using EDI, you've actually lost the ability to scan the supplier's delivery notes, because if you physically scan supplier invoices, some people actually put the delivery notes behind the invoice and scan it all as if it was one document. But if you're getting those invoices through by EDI, you've lost that ability to hold those scanned delivery notes. So we want to sort of think about that area. Possibly scanning returns to suppliers, and we just threw this open to the room to say, was there anything else that we hadn't thought of? And we have actually had one really good suggestion, I think, about stock check sheets. But if there's anything else that you can think of, please let us know. The General Data Protection Regulations, GDPR. When we actually had our first user meeting, we actually had a conference going on across the corridor for all the Vauxhall dealerships in the UK, where they were going to talk to everybody about this new legislation. I actually think we got more people that turned up to our user meeting than turned up to their seminar, but there we go. What we're not is experts on the legislation, but what we can do is give you advice on what we hold and how to find it in Counteract. And if you've got any specific suggestions about facilities that you need to comply with the legislation, then please just ask and we'll respond accordingly. So that's that piece of legislation. And then following on from the B2B side, but also in general really about dealing with orders from customers, we sort of threw out into the room these sort of areas that we could potentially look at. And we were looking for feedback on what was the most important. We'd had a couple of meetings as well with some customers to talk around this subject prior to the use meetings as well, which were really useful. And so we've, delivery routing sort of systems that tell you the best route to take when you're delivering, organising your deliveries into the best routes to take and so on, tracking where your drivers are and so on, updating customers about their order, electronic POD, and right down to vehicle management, so keeping track of any sort of statutory things you need to keep track on the vehicle, so fleet management really. So the sort of feedback we got was that delivery routing and tracking deliveries, most people are sort of sorted in that respect, in that you've got software that you've got in your vehicles and you've already got sort of very specific third-party pieces of software that really handle those things. So, and also for the vehicle management side, the sort of fleet management side of things, again, there's really sort of specialist software out there that will deal with those things. So the feedback we were getting was that we should concentrate on the middle two, so updating customers about their order, giving them some sort of idea where it's got to in the process and when it's likely to arrive, and also then capturing electronic proof of delivery. I think it's fair to say that there's quite a lot more discussion to be had about these areas. One of the things is with the electronic POD is that we could go down two routes. We could actually try and develop something ourselves, or we could try and link into existing third-party software. And obviously there are pros and cons for each of those routes as well. So no decision has been made at this point. But that's the sort of areas that we're looking at for 2018. So that will cover the next two issues of Counteract after the one that we're in the process of rolling out now after the user meeting. So that will be 7B and 7C for next year. So
Okay,
I
think that's it. Thank you very much. It's about an hour. So that was well timed, wasn't it? So thank you very much for listening and your attention. As you say, if you've got any questions about anything we talked about today, just drop support an email. Same goes if you'd like a copy of any of the slides that we've shown today. I'll put a link. I'll send you copies of the links to the recording as well of this webinar. So if you want to have enjoy it all again, you can do. Just say thanks again for listening. The next webinar is on the B2B portal. It's actually 3 o'clock same day next week, so next Thursday on the 11th. And hope to hear from you all again then.